Yeah, so this is the tire with the rim that we kind of had a sneak peek at during Jason's session. And I do want to point out that originally Jason gave me really specific instructions on what type of rim that he wanted. So I came up with this. And after, I
and
did
by
this,
specific, you mean not specific at all.
I guess not. I thought it was pretty specific. And then I came up with this thing, which, wasn't overnight, right? It's not, it did take a little bit of time. And then he's like, actually, that's not what I want at all. I want something more like this. So
wait, I want to know what he told you. Was it like, can you design some rims to look like some kind of vascular system or...
Well, there's actually
tree roots.
The story is that I actually, for training purposes, I was trying to explain to people how to use ordered geometrical sets, which is this really cool thing that we can use inside of XDesign and XShape.
Yes.
And to do that, I designed a stylus holder for a Wacom stylus. And I had these kind of weird branches going through each other. And he's like, dude, we should do that as a car rim, right? Because that's
how Jason talks all the time.
So that's what I came up with, and then he's like, yeah, I could just tell. I think he didn't want to tell me, but he wasn't really feeling it. So then I got some more direction, and that's how we came up with this rim. But we're not going to really go into that rim, but I am happy to save these out, post them. I can post them somewhere public. If you guys want to play around with the models, let me know. We can throw them out there.
We should definitely do that. Post it on 3D Swim in the SolidWorks Connect community. Definitely.
Yeah. I can post it there for download, and then anybody that has access to XDesign can download it. And I could even post out a step or an SLD XML that you can open up in SolidWorks as well. To play around with if you want to modify it with surface modeling tools or whatever. You guys come up with all the crazy awesome stuff, so I'm sure you'll make something way cooler out of it. But what I did want to talk about is the tread specifically inside of this other tool that we have called X Generative Design. And you may notice right away something over here, right? That actually says CATIA. Right. One of the really cool things about the 3D Experience platform is the fact that we've kind of broken down all the barriers between the brands inside of Dassault systems. Right. So, SolidWorks has an extremely intuitive user interface and a user community that's been around for 25 years. I think the best mechanical design software that there is. And that translates as 85% of people using it to do mechanical design. But we can't deny the fact that CATIA is ridiculously powerful. In fact, that
ordered geometrical set thing you were talking about is CATIA as well.
I did a SolidWorks blog on ordered geometrical sets. I think the Wacom stylus is in there. So if you want to know what the heck we're talking about, you can just search ordered geometrical sets SolidWorks. You'll find it on the SolidWorks blog. But another thing is under the hood. Right, XShape is running on the same exact kernel as CATIA, Imagine, and Shape, which is considered the gold standard for subdivisional modeling. All the crazy cool cars and planes that are designed with sub D modeling are designed with CATIA, Imagine, and Shape. So we have access to those tools now. And one of the things we have access to is this tool called X Generative Design. Right now, just opening this thing up and then rotating it around. I mean, you can imagine in SolidWorks, there are a lot of little tiny edges and bodies and stuff. Especially if I started modifying this stuff in SolidWorks, first of all, it might take a long time to rotate depending on what my display settings were. It would take a heck of a long time to rebuild. And there's a good chance that if I start changing stuff, I'm going to break a bunch of relations somewhere. All right. And I'm going to have to go fix that and repoint them somewhere. And that's just the nature of parametric modeling, right?
There would be red all over that feature tree if I tried to edit anything.
and that's the thing is not to bash parametric modeling. I love it. I love SolidWorks. I'm wearing my SolidWorks, certified SolidWorks expert shirt right now, right? But parametric modeling is and always will be a double-edged sword, right? it updates everywhere, but it updates everywhere, right? Like that's the problem, right?
It's a good way to explain it.
Yeah. So what this is a completely different type of tool, and we refer to it as computational design. Okay. And I practiced this a bunch of times and somehow I lost it. There we go. Inception, right? Yes. That was me 30 seconds ago. Okay. This is me talking to myself in the past. Here, I was because I was in full screen on this thing. We'll put that over there and we'll put this over here. And what's going on here is actually this tire is being driven by these nodes in this graph. Yes, it's very frightening.
Okay, right? That's intimidating, man.
Yeah, it looks intimidating, but it's actually like, okay, imagine if your feature tree weren't linear and it could like web out, right? Now I'll show you a little example here. Now, what I did is actually this geometry right here, that's original, well, it's actually this one. This original tire surface was actually brought in from a SolidWorks model, right? So I had a SolidWorks model and then I brought it in and I created a pattern on it. So you can do this and you can push it back into SolidWorks. So this can be in addition to SolidWorks, right? It doesn't have to be in a replacement of SolidWorks.
Okay,
you can.
But Andy, first you hovered over the node up above and there was like a sports ticker like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Can we have that in our feature tree?
I know, right? Yeah, like
my text is always too long to fit in that narrow little column. I love this.
Yeah, good times.
All right, sorry.
No, it's all right. This is great. Good stuff. So over here, what I have is I'll turn this on and show these nodes. And what I actually have here are a bunch of, there we go, planes. And all I'm doing is I'm defining where these planes are. So, and then I'm using that to split up the inner side surface and the outer side surface, right? And now I also have this node that's actually I've defined as like a slider bar. So I can essentially slide back and forth where the middle plane is, right? So from there, I can use
I think we're getting some audio from the desk right now.
Yeah, I hear a Dan Wagner.
Dan Wagner, turn off your mic.
Your mic's hot, Dan Wagner. He's probably talking smack about me.
Yeah.
You know how he is. He's talking smack. No, Dan Wagner's like one of the nicest guys ever. Okay, cool. So so this inner side, right, is driving all of these nodes. And then if I turn this on, so much going on, right? Hold on. Wait.
Now I'm intimidated by both halves of your screen.
I like it. Good. So let me hide some of this stuff, and it starts to make more sense. Okay, so all I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, where does this plane intersect with the edge? Right, big deal, right? Intersection curve, right? We can do that in SolidWorks, right? Now I do a divide curve, right? We can actually do that in SolidWorks too, right? We added that a while. I think it's called
segment tool.
Yeah, the segment tool, right?
All right, so you're just picking, are you picking an angle or are you picking a quantity?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this is a number of, and quantity. So this is actually divide curve by percentage. There's another node called divide curve by length. And these are actually all down in here. If you don't know what you're looking for, you can start going and searching for them, right? So here's the divide one, and we have some different tools down here for this. Divide curve
so they do have a command search.
Yeah, you can search for the command, which is glorious, right? And when I start modeling a little bit, in a few minutes, I'm going to model a bunch of stuff live for you, and you'll see how quickly you can start creating these nodes, because I can basically just drag, type, click, drag, type, click, and like all of a sudden you have 10 nodes in a row in a few seconds. So it's a lot faster than like, one feature per node. It's not really that fast, right? So I've divided these up, created a bunch of lines, extruded a bunch of surfaces from those lines. And then again, I'm doing an intersection curve with those extrudes, right? So now I have these curves, and then I do another divide or segment, which is what we call in SolidWorks. However, this one is different because I've added this graph to this. And with the graph, I'm saying there's not a linear relationship where they're spread out evenly. What I'm doing with this graph is I'm changing the spacing, right, as it goes along the graph. So basically where it's more steep, they are further apart from one another. And when it's less steep, they are closer to one another. So this point here is really representing here where they get scrunched together and then spread apart. So you can create this, like,
I love this.
It is very wild, man.
Now that already we're all right. So pretty much like the last 10 nodes that you showed us is kind of like a singular feature in SolidWorks. Yeah. So you get like way granular. A node there's like a ratio maybe of nodes to what would be a SolidWorks feature. But as soon as you show us this one, it's like, okay,
Hold on.
Hold on. Yeah, that is really cool. And you're doing it with the simplicity of a curve, right? So it keeps, there's two things. There's a simplicity to it, but it's also you're controlling the acceleration of the change of the spacing with the curve. There's no better way to do that because now it's nice, smoothed and eased from, you know, the spacing throughout. And that's how you get that really, really, really professional look in or touch to this type of geometry. Love it. That is cool.
And the other thing I haven't really pointed out yet is the fact that, like, what we're working with, like, as points, but also lists. Pretty much every pattern that you create is built on a series of points. But then how those points are divvied up into lists or tables is actually driving like a whole bunch of other like logic behind the scenes. And you can actually manipulate that. I'll show you a little later, like one example of how you can take advantage of some of that stuff. But you can see that this grid right here is actually like, it's basically like, okay, there's every 10 points down there, right? And then this is the next one, right? So
it's really fun seeing the cross highlighting on the model too.
The cross highlighting is so cool because you can really understand what, like, when something inevitably goes wrong, right? You can start going like, wait, it's fine here, it's fine here, it's fine here. Here's where it breaks. Oh, of course it breaks there because, you know,
it's there.
Because math, because physics, right? Like, it can't do that, right? Like, and then it becomes obvious. So what I've actually done here, and these are like what, you know, originally the first time I started playing with this, these are like the boring ones, right? Okay, I'm gonna invert the list and then transpose it and then shift it and like, oh God, what is all this nonsense? But what all this stuff is doing is it's actually saying, okay, I want to create a list that starts with this point and then goes to that point, and then goes to that point, and then goes to that point, and then to that point, and then
you're connecting the dots.
I'm connecting the dots by shifting by one every time. So now, I told you all that to show you this. Now we can create these splines, and these splines are essentially driving how we're going to split these faces up, right?
Wow.
So now I can do this slice surface with these splines, right? And now I've got all these faces. And then from there, I can basically, I have a list, or in this scenario, a table of individual faces, right?
That's so cool.
And now every single one of those faces, I can do something individually to every single one of those faces.
Now
right?
tell me, Andy, how tempted were you to ignore the fact that this was a tire and then start varying the patterns as it cycled around the tire? Obviously, we have to make it balanced with its weight and mass and like keep the splines the same, which is kind of like what a circular pattern could do potentially.
Right.
If you could create it all properly and make the features rebuild okay. But I mean, you could do that, right? Probably pretty easily, but you had
this right here could be, you could very easily vary the pattern around the thing. And also, like, you know, to be quite honest, like this portion right here, you could do in SolidWorks by essentially creating one of those, right, with some splines and maybe the wrap feature and like some very careful, you know, thought process into how I'm going to define those splines. And you could probably do it. It would be really difficult, and it'd be even harder to like manipulate after the fact and change. But it's possible. But we're going to start getting into some stuff that is more impossible to do with SolidWorks.
And right before you do that, I want to point out, because it was like in the last 4 minutes of our previous session with Jason that we actually reminded the audience that this is all being done in a web browser. You can actually see your address bar right here, but this again is just a web browser. So you could be doing it on a tablet, wherever you're comfortable, and wherever you have internet access.
Absolutely true. Yes.
So cool.
Yeah.
I mean, just displaying that geometry, that complex geometry would be difficult in a parametric CAD system, right? It would give your graphics card a run for the money, and this way that they're displaying the graphics through a web browser, it's really efficient.
It is pretty wild. So like just this node right here, right? Find the center of every single face, right?
That's
of
cool.
836 faces. Now down here, you'll notice that there's some points that don't have edges on them, right? And if I turn this guy back on, oh, you know what? I turned this whole thing off. Kind of want to, I wanted to show this because this is where it starts getting like pretty wild. Like what
I didn't notice what you said though. There are points without edges. What was it?
Yeah. So like there's a face right here. But you notice how that face didn't get built into 3D?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because although there's a point there, what I did is I then said, okay, grab all the points that are near this face, right? Which basically strings together all of these points, just those ones. They're the points that are closest to a plane, the outside plane. And then from that, I created this spline, right? A curve that goes through all of them. And then I asked it, which of these points, which of all of these points are laying on that spline, right? And if they are laying on that spline, then I run it through this thing called a dispatch. And basically it's a bunch of true false values, right? So I'm running true false values, right? We'll find a true somewhere here. Maybe not, it's probably at the top. There we go. So all of these are true, right? So all of those trues are going to be removed from this list. So now I remove the empty values and I go from having 836 nodes to 792 nodes.
Okay.
So now I've removed all the faces I don't want because I don't want those little tiny sliver faces. And now I'm actually...
That's when you start building the physical geometry, protruding it up.
No. I told you that was going to happen too. So corded mics are way better than uncorded mics, but then that happens sometimes. So now what I do is take the surface area of all 792 nodes, run it through some logic here where I get the stats and I basically divide the surface area by the mean surface area and then multiply that by 2.5, which essentially gives me this value right here, right? So now when I run it through that math, now I get about 4 millimeters right here for this one and about 1.5 millimeters, 1.4 millimeters for this one. Now where it started was, that one has a lot more surface area than that one. So what I'm doing is I'm building in this logic to my curve parallel node, what we can think of as an offset entities node, okay? And now if we look at that, we can kind of see what's happening is when I have larger faces, the offset is greater. And when I have smaller faces, the offset is less.
The gap between them.
Yeah. Like,
oh my gosh. That is cool.
I have done tech support for some people that call up and do some wild stuff with equations, like way over my head inside of SolidWorks. But I'm sorry. I don't think that you could do this sort of thing, especially not with this many nodes.
That's incredible. But before we dig any deeper into this amazingness, Andy, you're a busy guy. You've got a lot of responsibilities here. You're involved in like so many things going on. Yeah. And you're the SolidWorks surfacing expert. You're an X-shape expert as well. And you're getting your hands on everything. How much time did it take you to learn this? And when did you start?
That's a great question. It was less than a year ago. I I started messing around with this. And at first I was really frustrated because it's a completely different way of modeling, but it's almost like immersion therapy for like learning a language, you know? Seriously,
Yes.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like I got over these stumbling blocks and like I had this like old way of thinking, right? Which is a lot of times what happens when we have surface modeling experts trying to use X shape.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
It actually with Jason, it happened.
It's like, no, you gotta let it go. You gotta let it go.
Yeah, no,
you don't need a dimension. You don't need a plane.
And like you want to like, oh, take this chunk and like loft them together. And it's like, no, you just make the whole thing a sub D body. Like you have to think about it differently. And I did the same thing with this computational design. And a friend of ours, Nuri Miller, who's part of DS2, helped me out so much. He's an expert in the software and like, I'd get
he was using it practically in the field for architecture for years and years.
Yeah. And then, so I'd call him with questions, and then I finally got to the point where I started to be able to connect the dots and I stopped thinking of patterns as like I would in SolidWorks, where we create a seed, right? And then pattern along like a line or on these points or something like that. No, we're creating everything at once. It's all happening at the same time. There's no history-based stuff. Everything is all true at the same time. We throw
except for the stuff that you removed with the dispatch node.
Well, no, that still exists. You can still
shoot.
Later
Come on, man. Give me some credit for following along.
That's good. But that's the thing. It got removed in that list. But later on, I can go reference something that got removed. Like you can't do that in SolidWorks.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty wild.
Because you could reference upstream nodes whenever you want and connect them to downstream nodes and bypass chunks, and it's a big web. Yeah, absolutely. Just like your initial design of the rims.
Huge messy web.
Okay, so how many hours do you think you have into this?
Into this tire?
No, into learning. Or maybe I should ask days or weeks. Yeah, I mean, like, I would say like probably like a few weeks, like working on it. Like if I took like all the hours here and there and then compacted it all together, I'd say a few weeks total, right? So like 1 to 2 months?
No, I'd say like 3 weeks.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like probably if I stacked it up all together, I bet it would be like that amount of time.
And you're not even that smart, so
I'm not. Yes, I'm very dumb. No, it's seriously like that's like
impressive.
It's I don't think I'm not special, right? Like I
yes,
do have
you are.
some I do have some qualities that help. If you understand the ideas behind surface modeling, then it's going to help in here because it's a lot of like intersection curves, trimming things back, and creating the surface and thickening it, like that sort of stuff. But other than that, I mean, like it's pretty intuitive. Once your brain switches over, right? Yeah. Like I think if I watched enough of Bruno's sessions, like all of a sudden I would start understanding Portuguese eventually, right?
right, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So then I ran the. We'll go a little bit quicker because I want to get into the live design stuff. But this one is like a very similar node where I'm also then putting corners on each one of these faces. And it's a similar node in that you'll see the smaller the face is, the smaller the fillet. The bigger the face is, the bigger the fillet. Right? Pretty cool. And remember, those are all curved, right? Like that's not easy geometry, right? Like that's tricky geometry right there. So then, yeah, that all gets thick and yada yada. But I do want to point out this thing. If I can, no. Hide. There we go. And we'll hide this. I also have to remember that you can do this. I always like want to zoom out and zoom back in. Jordan loves when I try to record SolidWorks videos because I'm just like a spastic mouse user. I'm all over the place. So, like, it hurts him in his soul. Like,
keep it intentional.
Yes. So anyways, with this one, what I do is I take these points, right? We get a series of points again. No big deal, right? Just like we did before. So I have points that look like this, and this time they're like at an angle, right? And this is also like I'm able to put things at an angle. And I didn't mention this before. You can create these things called controllers, and then over here we can actually go into the experiment tab. Right. And all of these controllers are at your fingertips. So now, Jordan doesn't really know how to use XGen, right? He's seen me like try to explain some stuff, but he doesn't have like stick time on it. But he can go in and see this experiment tab and understand, that he needs to like manipulate things in here, which change variables in the pattern and have it.
And you have complete control. You could spoon feed me the things that you want to allow me to modify,
and not let you modify other things.
And keep everything else hidden. Yeah. But again, you flip that open one more time. We were talking about this being web-based. Like, this is totally feasible. A slider, a big plus and minus sign to change the quantity. Those control handles, it looks like a spline. This could be done on a tablet, right?
I knew that's where you were going. Yeah, touch screen all day. Yeah, you can absolutely have somebody come in here on a tablet and just do it without even using a mouse. It's pretty amazing.
So cool. And again, like a design review, you whip open a tablet, or you have a big touch screen in your meeting room, and you're reviewing this with the client that you're designing it for, and you just start tweaking stuff based on their feedback. So cool.
Absolutely. So I'm going to turn off all the solid creation stuff at the end right now. So we can just kind of focus on this real quick. So I have all these points, and then what I'm doing is I'm basically, I'm flattening it out, and then I'm creating, and flattening it is like, I go from having a table, and then I say, no, just list them all in order, one single list. And then I say, grab every other one, because I don't, because I want to create like kind of a triangular type pattern here rather than stacked one on top of the other. And then I add a Voronoi. And this is when people get confused. This is when I got confused. First of all, I was like, Voronoi sounds like it's some sort of pasta, right? That I should order with like red sauce or something. And second of all, I always sing that my Voronoi has a first name. No, okay. So it's this weird thing, right? But what I can actually do is...
You can narrow it down a little more than that. It's a shape, right?
Voronoi? Yeah. Yeah. I'm now just realizing that I like had this like extra tab, and I was like, I don't need that tab. Darn it. I was so close.
What, did you close something you shouldn't have?
I deleted a tab that had I had a wiki tab. It was so great. I was like, I had a web reader. It was right in there. It was so awesome. So this is the idea behind a Voronoi pattern. Basically, at every point, you get a cell. And what makes these cells unique, there's some like mathematical formula that I don't understand. Again, like Jordan pointed out, I'm not that smart, right? But each point, right, is the closest point anywhere in the cell. Okay?
That made no sense.
Anywhere inside of this cell, at any point that you, like if I added a point right here, the closest other point is going to be the center point of the cell. If I'm over in the green area, if I add a point anywhere, the closest point to it is right here. Good face. Yeah. So this is another one. You're smarter than me, Andy. Understand it. Look at this.
Oh.
So this starts to make more sense, I think. There's this natural growth pattern to a Voronoi if you have like seeds growing in cells.
I get it.
This is how it will work. Yeah. And
that is the perimeter of the closest point radiating out from the point. Okay.
Right. Yes. And actually, I saw this GIF, and then I was eating corn on the cob, and then I was like, oh my God, the corn kernels are Voronoi, right? Like, this is the pattern that I've been talking about. I took a picture. I think I actually sent it to Jordan and Nuri.
That's good. I remember that.
And
So
but it totally made sense now. So now that we all fully understand what the heck a Voronoi is, let's talk about it. So in here, right? So it's creating that crazy shape. And then what I'm doing with it is I'm basically saying, okay, use that shape to create split lines all the way around my 3D model. So this point is the closest point inside of this cell. Because remember, that point doesn't actually exist. We took that point out. Like these are the points we're working with, right?
Okay.
So now I have that split face, and then I do some of the same exact stuff here where I'm doing the area, and then I'm doing some function of the area, and I'm basically saying everything that's like at least 75% of the whole, or everything that's 75% of the surface area of the largest one will be grouped into these larger portions, and then the other ones will be grouped into these smaller portions. And so I split them out, and I basically do some cool stuff to basically create a bunch of lines, so that we have all these ones going in the same direction here. And then when I go down here, what I'm doing instead is I'm actually saying, okay, do a sample surface. So every single one of these surfaces, it's actually throwing points onto that surface. I gotta show the box that I'm in. There we go. So for every one of these faces that I've deemed smaller, it's doing that. And then because of the way that this is now set up, when I run the Voronoi on this, it's actually creating, what is it? 180 Voronoi, right? So 180 of those little cubes, and some of them are, tiny, and some of them are larger. And then that's basically splitting up the rest of it. And that's what ends up getting built into these other patterns here. So
this is why you can't just do STEM. You got to do STEAM, right? Like the A for art. It's creativity as well. You need the math, you need the technology and all that stuff, but you got to have creativity too. That was pretty smart what you did.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
So you are smart.
Thank you.
You're back to being smart.
Yes, I knew it. I knew I could do it. So I could go into this experiment tab and start rebuilding stuff, but look, guys, this isn't magic, right? We just talked about the thousands of like points and different like little angles and everything, like literally thousands, right? So doing a rebuild on this does take a little bit of time. So what I did is I just created a video. Oh, look, somebody already liked my post.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
It was me. I like it. You can like your own post, and I do like it. Okay, so in this video, it's just showing how you could update using the experiment tab. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually change that slider bar. I can just drag it out to whatever I want, or you could type a number in there, right? And you notice everything shifts, right? Nothing's broken. Everything just moves, right? That rebuild right there took about 3 minutes. I think the next one takes about 4 minutes, just to give you an idea of how much time it took. The entire video, this entire video was recorded in like 15 minutes total.
4 minutes, but zero effort, next to zero effort.
Right. I'm doing it, and then I'm browsing Reddit for 4 minutes. Like that's what's happening, or I mean, I'm answering work emails, and I'm being productive.
Yes.
In case any of my bosses are on.
He is. Mike Sabocek is watching.
Mike, I was answering emails, especially yours.
And by the way, Andy, I should address the crowd. They've been active on the chat, and they've been giving you all kinds of compliments. Actually, nice. They turned against me pretty quickly when I said the not smart comment, and you've got tons of support. Emotional
They're all
support.
backing me up. Good.
Andy is smart and creative, and this is too much. And mind
leave him alone.
explosions.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right,
so lots of positive feedback.
So this is the I think the last rebuild that happens where basically I'm changing the graph on the other side to make it uneven, and I'm changing the angle. Right now it's at like 15 degrees. I'm going to change it to either 25 or 30 degrees. You'll notice that because of the way I've made the graph, they're larger in the middle and skinnier on the ends. And there you go. So that's how we end up with our end result. But, really quickly and easily, we can make these changes and then have them update, right? I mean, like 15 minutes. I mean, like, like for all those changes, like it's pretty wild. And not
to mention that, like, these different patterns would influence the performance of in the case that we're using the tire. But so often, I mean, we haven't really talked about this, Andy. Patterns are used everywhere, like in today's products. Like you look at anything. So many things are injection molded, so they could get super creative with patterns for grip, for different purposes. Shoes, you're gonna see endless patterns. This all started in architecture, but it's really been readapted for any kind of product design whatsoever. And also SolidWorks herself or himself, whoever, whatever gender SolidWorks is, also confirms this is amazing. Nice work, Andy. You are very smart.
Yay. So, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of that. So let's take a look at this chair. Right. This was all done in X shape by Jason Poole from earlier. And all I did here was I just did an offset surface at 0, or like a copy surface, to separate out into different ordered geometrical sets the different portions that I want to pattern. Right. So now I can utilize that inside of X Generative Design by just using some of these input nodes. So this, we're going to do some live modeling right now. And I gave myself much less time than I wanted to. So
I'm sorry. It was me. I've been talking too much.
It's your fault. And we all know it. The viewers know it. So I'm not too worried about it. All right. So now basically I just double click over here, and then I can come over here and I can say, I want to grab that surface, right? So that was like the whole surface, right? And now I have an input node that's specifically referencing some geometry. And this geometry happens to be from X shape, but you could do the exact same thing with something from SolidWorks, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is surface sampling. And notice how I'm just typing, right? I'm just typing in the area. And then I'm going to say I want 400 points. And then we're going to drop it there. And then we're going to go 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000. And in 7 seconds, I got 400 points, right? Kind of like when it does sampling, they're not all evenly spaced, but they're not evenly spaced. It's random, but they're still spread out in sort of an even fashion.
I like it. Organized randomness.
That's a great way to put it. So now I'm actually going to do a Voronoi.
Oh, here we go. Jumping right into the Voronoi.
Let's do it, dude. I'm going to do faces. I'm going to say all. This is my skin. These are my points. And I think this one takes a little bit longer, actually. So because of that, I've actually prepared a little thing for us. We have a discussion wheel here. All right, let's see what we get.
Oh boy.
Ooh, yeah, gotta have consequences, you know? All right. Jordan, have you ever gotten great stuff foam on your hands?
I have a terrifying story about this.
Well, we don't have time for it.
All over my hands, and I thought I was going to lose my hand because it like hardened and like was cutting off my circulation. So yeah, always wear gloves. with great stuff foam.
So now I put a boundary on there, right? Now the cool thing about this is the fact that it's actually like a bunch of faces, right? But if I was going to do faces and then I was going to try and do a circular sweep, it would actually do like weldments. Jordan knows a little bit about weldments, right? It would basically take those tubes and trim those tubes on one another. And that takes a lot of computational power. So I'm actually going to say sub elements, and I'm basically just going to grab all of the edges individually here. Okay. So now I've got a bunch of individual edges, and then I'm going to do a circle sweep with a radius of 1 millimeter, and I'll put the guide curves on there. Man, I'm running out of time. Oh, this one's going to take a little bit of time. Go back over to the wheel. Hey! Oh,
nope.
Well, that's okay.
So
I love to snowboard. I'm really hoping that at some point we get to design those snowboard bindings using X-Shape and 3D Pattern Shape Creator before SolidWorks, or I'm sorry, 3D Experience World. That's what
that would be a great 3D Experience World presentation.
Yeah. So you can see I got all of the little tubes there. So so now I could actually like do some other features to like combine it or cut it away to actually add that definition there. But that's actually not the one I want to focus on. We have 18 minutes for the next one. Let's do this. Let's go. So now I'm going to do the other pattern, which is the more interesting one. And this is what we wanted to spend the most time on. And we're going to be rushed. This is exactly the opposite of how you're supposed to do presentations, guys, for everybody keeping track at home. All right. So now
I didn't know you were so brave to do all this live. I would have shut up the first half.
Oh, I'm doing it live, man.
This is awesome.
So now I go, okay, I want a center point of all of these, right? So I go center, right? And now I get 1 point, right? And I get 1 point because it's one thing. So it's grabbing the geometric center of all 5 of those, right? So what I want to do instead is just like before, I'll do sub elements, but instead of edges, I'm going to do faces. So now I get 12 faces, right? Well, really what I want is like 5 cushions, right? So I can—
Is there a cushion node?
I could then do group by continuity, and now it recognizes that they're tangent, and now I get 5 sets, right? So now I can just take that node and apply it here, and now I get 5 points.
So cool. Then, you can just reconnect it and everything updates.
Yeah. And then all I need to do is do plane tangent, and I'm going to do that point on this surface. And now I get a bunch of planes that are tangent to the surface at that point. Right. And now,
that's cool.
Remember before I was talking about how everything's like lists and points, right? So now I'm going to use that plane to create a triangular grid. All right. Now I got planes, and I'm going to say each side of the triangular grid is 15 millimeters, and I'll say like 15 by 20. And I got a bunch of grids of points. Great. Except the grids don't start in the middle. They start on the corner, which is super frustrating, right? But I've already run into this a whole bunch of times. So what I've actually done is I've created a user operator and then saved it into a library. So this user operator that I've created, anybody with access to my collaborative space can access this user operator. So if Jordan logged in, or Jason or anyone else on our SLUGME tenant that we created would be able to access this. And then if they loaded it, they'd see centered triangular grid as a user operator. So now this
you get to pick your own feature icon too?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you Google search triangle center, that's like the third outcome. Don't tell anybody though, because that image is probably trademarked or something. Don't tell marketing.
Let me know next time, man. That's my side hobby is building icons.
Yeah, man, it's pretty sweet. So now it's going to build all of them centered,
Nice.
right? But now what I can do also, if I wanted to edit something in there, I could say edit the user operator. And this
so that's the benefit of drawing all those rectangles.
The benefit of drawing all the rectangles.
You can
like
save those rectangles out into your library.
Yeah,
and you can collapse them to make them visually visually cleaner.
Yes, you can collapse. If you're like, I don't need to know what's happening here. It's just a bunch of math. Who cares? I'm never going to change it.
And you see that only the inputs coming in and the outputs going out. Crazy.
Exactly.
That's nice.
So now if I went in here and then change this to say there's only 10. Oh, not 1. 10. Then it would be 10 wide. Come on. Go. There we go. All right. So now what I could do is create a Voronoi of this. But this is the weird thing about the lists. And like, you don't need to understand this. I probably shouldn't even explain it, but I feel like I'm obligated to show you everything I'm doing. So it's not like magic, right? So what's happening here is we've actually got this like, it's almost like you can think of it like an indented feature tree, right? Where it's like, these are contained in these or contained in these. And by default, the Voronoi is working on the bottom of that tree, whatever the bottom layer is, right? So really what we want is we want each one of these to have its own Voronoi, right? But it's diving down into this stuff, right? So if I did this right now, it would actually create like, I don't know how many there are, but a lot, right? 5 times 10 times 30, right? It'd create like a Voronoi that's like it would create 1,500 individual Voronois, which would be bad. So what I can do is with the flatten node, right? This flatten will actually, yeah, I was right. 1,500. It'll create 1,500 items, right?
Wow.
But I can actually do this weird thing, which I only know because of Nuri. I can change the dimension on there, and the dimension on there is actually changing what layer it is in that like structure of the list. So I can say I want the second row of the list, or the second row of like if we saw it like
the
a
indentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I end up with 5 of them that each have 300 points, right? And now I can do a Voronoi of that. Oh, shoot. And we should have grabbed the skin for that. So actually what I wanted to do is I come back here and I call these cushion faces, and spell cushion right. It's important. Cushion faces. And then I can actually make this node a favorite, which I call wireless, right? It's like a wireless node. So now when I'm way over here, because I know I'm going to need to reference that a whole bunch of times. So I can actually now go here and go to favorites and select cushion faces and add the skin and create faces, which I want to do.
So you don't have to scroll across the screen and grab that point and drag it.
Exactly. When imagine like, the tire, like it was getting pretty big. All right. So this Voronoi does take a little bit of time. So
I can't wait. What's our next topic?
Yeah. So we'll spin the wheel. I'm supposed to be removing the topics too.
You put the Bills on there. Are the Browns too?
They are.
Oh, they are. Almost got it. Religion.
Oh, music. That would have been bad. All right. Wow. Okay. So you got me into MF Doom. I slept on MF Doom for years. I hope you noticed I got Czarface up here, the new Czarface Doom.
Rest in peace, MF Doom.
R.I.P. MF Doom. All caps when you say the name. All right. So now I'll just do a boundary of that just so we can see the faces. And now you can see like this pattern that I've created here, right?
Ooh,
so that's cool, right? We get this like grid pattern. But what I want to do, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a speed round at this point. What I want to do is size these appropriately. Okay. So probably the first thing that I'll do is I'll actually turn the Voronoi off. I'm going to deactivate it because I don't want it to build. I just want to play with the points. And then when I have the points the way I want them, then I'll turn the Voronoi back on. The first thing I'll do is I'll do an area. And with the area node, I'll grab cushion faces. And then from that, I'll grab, now I have the area of all of them, right? And I'll do stats. And that gives me all of the different types of things that I could get statistically out of that. And then I'll take the max and I'm going to divide this by the max. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me this list where now the biggest one is 1 and everything else is some scale of 1, some ratio of 1. But this is area, so we have that square in there, right? It's millimeters squared. And what I'm worried about is like length, right? So I want to do a square root of that essentially to get like the proper ratios. So that's easy enough. I just square root it. And now I have different values in there. And now what I'll actually do is I'll take these points. Is it those points that I want?
Don't ask me.
I'm like, this is the part this is the part I practiced the least.
That's the part you were working on right before here?
Yeah, and I didn't have time.
Already, there are so many mind explosion emojis in the chat that I think you've earned everyone's appreciation for what you've done already. So take a second to think about it.
All right,
All right.
So these are my center points. And then I'm going to grab my center planes, which I could also create like favorites for. Wait, did that do it? Oh, it's still connect. Oh, that's cool. I didn't have to click the dot. I just had to click the face. I didn't even know you could do that. Cool. So now what I'll do is I'll take these values and that's how I'm going to scale R, X, Y, and Z. Right. And now affinity is just it's the CATIA term for their scale tool. But you can do it. You don't have to do a universal scale. You can say, I want to scale it in the X this much and in the Y this much and so on, which is pretty cool. So you can see that what it's doing is now, the smallest one is up here. The biggest one is down there, yada, yada. But actually, I want them to all be wider. So what I'll do is I'll do a multiply. And I'm going to multiply all of them by 2.5, I think maybe. And that's what I'm going to do in the X direction. So now they all get bigger in that direction. So now I'll run. How much time we got? We're doing okay. We're not going to have much time back at the desk. Oh, shoot. That's not the one
okay.
I wanted. I wanted to put that into there. So now I want to flatten that one. Did I do that right?
And it's so interesting watching you work. You keep on working, Andy. But I mean, you mentioned how it's like and Steve even mentioned it, from Central Texas, how it's a whole new way of thinking. And that's part of retraining yourself to be good at this. But there's also all of those nodes. Like it's good. It's a good thing that there's a search for them because, and it's good that they have like logical names as well. I'm appreciative of that.
Totally. Okay. So, I think if I turn off these, you can see now, like it's kind of boring looking at this point, but it's now like, they're smaller up here and larger down there and yada, yada. And they're a bit, spread out. But this is the thing that I was most excited to show you with 6 minutes left. All right. So this is actually a new tool that was a beta tool. They actually released beta tools in here. It's kind of weird, but awesome. I love it. So what I can do is create these things called attractors. So I'm going to create a point attractor force and bring it up here. So with that point attractor force, I'm taking that center point and I'm going to say within a radius of 150 millimeters, I want you to displace every point. If it's right next to the center point, then I want you to displace it by 25 millimeters. If it's 150 millimeters away, then I want you to do like almost 0, and then halfway between is halfway, right? So
okay.
So that's basically what it's doing. And then what I can do is apply it to these points. So now I can say a tractor on point. And these are the attractors, and these are the points that I'm doing them on. So now I'm going to hide this for a moment. It's going to take a little while. Should we wait or should we go to the wheel?
Go to the wheel, man.
No, we're going to wait on this one and we'll go to the wheel on the next one because that one's kind of quick. So now,
that was fast. Oh,
yeah, right? Yeah.
Nice.
And you start tweaking with that, and like you can start doing like some wild stuff. So now I can apply this, but when I apply this, it's going to redo the Voronoi, right? So now that's gonna take a little bit of time. I think that one takes like 30 seconds or something. So we'll go to the wheel.
Come on, religion or politics?
No. Come on. Oh, we got great stuff home again.
Oh my God.
We already talked about that. Remove it.
I wanna review all of these.
This is my favorite idea I've ever had.
This is so good.
Wheel.
Surface modeling. We already talked about surface modeling.
I know. Yeah. We could honestly talk about surface modeling forever.
Yeah.
So now if I look at what this Voronoi looks like.
By the way, it's 3 till, but we have gotten word that forget the desk. We're taking this all the way up to the minute because it's mind-blowing stuff.
So now I got something that looks like this on every one, right? So now maybe I want to like push it out more. Maybe I want to increase the radius, right? So I'll increase the radius to like 200, and then I'll increase the multiplier by 3, right? And then for each one of these, I'll do a curve parallel at 0.5 millimeters, where this is the curve and this is the surface. You told me I could go up to the minute. I'm going to do this.
Yes.
And then
got 2 minutes.
And then I can do a split where, not a spline. Split.
You need one more letter.
And this is what I'm splitting with. And this is the object that I'm splitting.
I feel like this is the best training that we could all possibly have, is like hearing you talk out loud as you build this. So good.
Yeah.
I too am just like a fanboy right now, just like drooling as you're doing it.
This is still gonna I haven't given it a chance to actually go through. So every time I add a new node, I think it's going back and being like, wait, now I got to recalculate this. Wait, now I got to recalculate this. Like
all
that's
right.
not what you should do. All right. So it's running that Voronoi. And then I think I'll be able to just add a thicken after that. We got the time to run the wheel again. Mountain biking. Something I really want to get into. I was into when I was in middle school, but now mountain bikes are impossible to purchase anywhere because they're not available. That is true. Yeah. And I was an avid mountain biker for a while, and then I had children. And now I'm lucky if I get out like a few times a year. I think I told you about it though. There's this cool thing called Kids Ride Shotgun, where it's a little seat and set of handlebars that you attach to your mountain bike, and then they ride right here, like right in the front of the bike. So if you like hit a rock and endo forward, yeah, they'll take the brunt of the load. That's good. You'll be all right. Literally die. Yeah. I don't know why I had that fail. So we're gonna. But it's okay. It failed like in some. Oh, I remember what I did. It would have this. Oh, it's literally time. All right. How about this? Yeah, it is literally time. And Andy, your homework is to post the final design on the SolidWorks Connect community so that everyone can see it in its glorious final state.